Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are going to look at Yitro, and Miriam and I had a conversation during the week, and we decided we're going to try something a little different. What we're going to do is, it's always been my desire that we just read the Torah for what it says. So, generally, I spend time during the week preparing, looking at it, reading it through, seeing what it says to me. But this time, I did not. So we're all going to be reading it for the first time. So if any of you see something that is in one of the verses, even in the Hebrew, because you read Hebrew, right? Jerry, you read Hebrew, and Miriam, you do too.
Abyssal, a little.
Abyssal, yeah, me too. But the thing that I love about this program, Sefaria, is that if you don't know the meaning of a word in Hebrew, you just click on it and it'll give you the meaning. And I can show that to you. Like in the portion is called Yitro in Hebrew, but in English it's Jethro, like the Beverly Hillbillies was Jethro. And Jethro actually was a Midianite. He wasn't a Jew. And God, he was the one who called it the mountain of God. He knew that God was there. So this is a really exciting portion. So let's just read it. And as I said, we're using Sefaria, which I highly recommend. I do compare it with other versions when I get into a little bit deeper studies, because I find that with the English, it's sometimes more of an interpretation than a direct translation. And that's why I like to read the Hebrew. So Jerry, why don't you begin?
Just
Okay,
one
I'm
question.
going to. Okay,
Yes,
I'm going to be. Are
Miriam.
you ready?
When you said Jethro was a Midianite,
Yes.
do you know what language they spoke?
I do not, but
Why was I okay? Just because you're saying he called it the mountain of God.
yeah.
So that's interesting. Maybe, anyway, maybe it was considered maybe before any Mosaic contact with with the Ten Commandments or anything. Other people had it had some encounters with God. I don't know.
I believe so.
Interesting.
And when you hear our rabbi's message this coming Shabbat, he said exactly what you just mentioned. So
That's interesting that he
yeah.
would call it that.
Yeah. Well, remember, God breathed his ruach, the breath of life, into every human being on earth, so that we all have his spirit within us. So it's like, remember we were talking, Miriam, about how there are native peoples who are in the maybe in the Amazon, who've never come in contact with other people, and yet they have a code of ethics.
Right.
Because God has put that in them.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So here, even though it says Jethro, in the Hebrew here is Yitro. Kohen, look, Kohen, Midian. The word Kohen is a priest, but we always think it's a Jewish word, but it's not. It's just the word that talks about him having a role, a position in his community, where he was the link between the people and God. So shall I begin?
I'll begin. I'm going to do a little different something.
Okay.
4 words different. Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard Vayishma all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, God's people, how Hashem had brought Israel out from Egypt.
So we see the Midianites here heard.
Sorry, just one thing. I for the past 2 minutes I didn't hear a thing. Was it only me? What happened?
I heard him.
I heard him.
Okay, something's with my computer.
Do you hear me now, Miriam? Do you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm
How
going to
many
repeat.
did you read?
I'm going to repeat English. Jethro, the priest of
No, but
Midian.
sorry, just how many verses did I miss?
Just one, Miriam.
None.
We just started.
None.
Okay.
We're starting. we're starting. Jethro,
Okay.
priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, God's people, how Hashem had brought Israel out from Egypt. So
Does-
Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after she had been sent home, and her 2 sons, of whom one was named Gershon, that is to say, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And the other was named Eliezer, meaning the God of my father's house was my help, delivering me from the sword of Pharaoh. And
So-
Zipporah was Jethro's daughter.
Exactly. So when you're reading this, if you look at it, if you kind of stand back and just kind of get a picture of the story, does it say anything to you?
It says that Moses may have sent Zipporah to be under the care of her father when he went to Pharaoh.
Exactly. He was too busy. He was busy bringing our people out. So she stayed home with her kids. Look what it says. And her 2 sons. Doesn't say their 2 sons. It says of her 2 sons. And here, so Jeff, he heard everything that had happened there. How did he hear all that? Did people talk about it? There
I
was
was
no,
just going to ask that. Yeah.
yeah, there was no social media.
It must have been, if you
Read by the word of mouth from other people.
Yeah, but it must have been, like we're just reading this, but could you imagine the hullabaloo or the talk around such an incredible event?
Exactly.
Like, if they heard about it.
Exactly. Let me tell you, they didn't have a lot to do except tell. There was no TVs, no radios. So people, as Brian said, it was word of mouth. People talked, and then they would go from this well to that well. They would travel, and did you hear what happened here? Did you hear how Egypt was a major power in those days? So this word spread. And here it says he was a stranger. He was a ger. See the Hebrew word here? He was a ger.
Right.
Eretz, in a foreign land. Okay.
And the other was named Eliezer, meaning the God of my father's house was my help, delivering me from the sword of Pharaoh. Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, brought Moses' sons and wife to him in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Yitro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed low and kissed him. Each asked after the other's welfare, and they went into the tent.
See, we still had a sense of decorum and respect. He bowed low out of respect and he kissed him. I go to my kid's house and it's like, you don't get that. There's no no sense of, oh, the bubby's here. Are you kidding? The kids are too busy. They're on their phones. Who has time? Here they asked after each other's welfare. This in the Middle East, and even to today, this idea of welcome is so strong.
Moses then recounted to his father-in-law everything that Hashem had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and how Hashem the Lord had delivered them. And Yitro rejoiced over all the kindness that Hashem had shown Israel when delivering them from the Egyptians.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
What were you going to say?
well, that Jethro is rejoicing over the kindness of Hashem, of God. So there's something going on with him. Like it's almost like, I don't know, I don't know, he has a relationship with God, or there's something special about him.
Exactly. It is. Not only is he special, the whole portion is named after him.
Yeah,
And
that's
he
true.
wasn't a Jew. He wasn't an Israelite. He was a Midianite.
Yeah, it's
They were
amazing.
they were relatives, but they were certainly not yeah, it is amazing because we tend to think that God only speaks to us. It's
Right.
not true.
No.
Blessed be Adonai, Yitro said, who delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, and who delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Adonai is greater than all gods, yes, by the result of their very schemes against the people.
Let's see what it says. There's a little star here. Yeah, by the result against the people. The meaning of the Hebrew, it says, is uncertain, but I don't know which, I guess the word schemes, but what does it say? Ki, badavar, the things, asher, zaru. Let's see if we press on zaru. Hold on. If I press on that word, zaru. Zaru means boil up, seethe, act, proud, presumptuously. How they were presumptuous. They dealt arrogantly with the people, against the people of Israel. Okay.
And Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to partake of the meal before God with Moses' father-in-law.
Do you notice how every time he mentions Jethro, practically he says Moses' father-in-law? I wonder why it would be constantly repeated if, you say it once, but here it's almost every time. Here, look, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. Well, here it's not, but here, Moses recount to his father-in-law. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. I, your father-in-law, Yitro. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law. It's interesting, eh? Why do you think that's repeated?
Maybe just to constantly remind us that him and Moses are so connected. But I don't know. But there's often that kind of repetition of titles and stuff in the Torah.
So obviously it had a purpose, obviously.
Well, yeah, I'm saying the connection with Moses and that he is somebody special, I guess.
And we have to be reminded because sometimes we tend to think that only the Israelites are special. And here is a Midianite.
I wonder what does it do to, I wonder what what the rabbis generally say about this passage, about Jethro.
Let's see if it says anything here. Here's from Ibn Ezra. Well, here it talks about him offering sacrifices, the meaning for God. I'd have to go through each one to see, what they say, but it's something, a good thing. What do you think, Jerry?
About I don't have a comment on Yethro except that his claim his claim I don't want to use that his claim to fame is that he's the father-in-law of Moses, and this is about Moses. Was not about Yethro originally, so it's about Moses, and so that's why they mention Moses most of the time, if not all the time.
But here he plays a big role in this, and you will see as we go on the role that as a matter of fact Moses wanted him to continue on the whole journey with them because he really valued his wisdom. And look what it says here. And Yitro, it's the noten is the choten is the father-in-law, brought a burnt offering, olah, and sacrifices zevachim to God, le'elohim. And Aaron, levo Aaron, v'kol zakenu, and all the elders of Israel, lechol lechem, they ate bread, im choten, Moshe, with the father-in-law of Moses, his name's begin, lifnei ha'elohim, before in the presence of God. Here, all these people, the elders, Aaron came. They all came to the base of the mountain. This is where they were all gathering. Okay, go ahead.
Next day, Moses sat as a magistrate among the people, while the people stood about Moses from morning until evening.
You see here, the word for magistrate is here, the shofet, as a judge. He was judging among the people, and the people were standing there. Imagine if you had to go, it sounds like almost like a waiting in line in Russia for, you wait from morning to night until you get to see the magistrate. And here, look what happened. Go ahead.
But when Moses' father-in-law saw how much he had to do for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you act alone while all the people stand about you from morning until evening?" Moses replied to his father-in-law, "It is because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, it comes before me, and I decide between one party and another, and I make known the laws and teachings of God."
Here, the laws, it's not the word law, it's huke. It's like his hukim. How is it possible that they would have had the chukim already? The Ten Commandments, the Torah wasn't given yet. But God, obviously, because Moses spoke face to face with God, to me, he would have had a direct connection. So he would pray and God would give him wisdom. Here, Ha-Elohim, Chukei Ha-Elohim, Ve'et Toratav. And his Torah, his teachings, the principles were already in Moses. And Moses would sit, listen, the people come to me. I got to talk to them. That's what he thought. And all of us sometimes want to take too much on ourselves. And here Moses' father-in-law has said to him, what you're doing is not right. You're going to wear yourself out and the people as well. The burden is too heavy for you and you cannot do it alone. Now, for a leader to accept this, it's not always easy because we think we're good at something and nobody can do as good a job as us. And so we don't allow others to help. And that's not a good thing. And look what he says, listen to me. I will give you counsel and God will be with you. You represent the people before God. You bring the disputes before God and command them. Tell them about the chukim here, chukim, the Torah, and the principles, the Torah, the instructions, the hodiata, and make them know, let them know, et hacholech, haderech, the derech, the way, and the way that they're supposed to go, and the practices that they are to follow. Okay, sorry, Jerry, I took over my enthusiasm. You see, I'm a leader. I took over.
You're welcome anytime.
Go ahead.
You shall always also seek out from among all the people capable individuals who fear God, trustworthy ones who spurn ill-gotten gain. Set these over them as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, and let them judge the people at all times. Have them bring every major dispute to you, but let them decide every minor dispute themselves. Make it easier for yourself by letting them share the burden with you.
So what do we see here? If we see Ata mikol ha'am ha'il yarei Elohim anshe men emet, who have truth. And these men who are capable, here it says here, capable individuals, traditionally men, who fear God, trustworthy ones who spurn ill-gotten gains. So basically what he's saying is that anybody who is going to do something for money or receive bribes under the table, or, he wanted people who know the truth, God's truth, who fear God. If we only had judges like that today, and lawyers and people who honestly cared about each other. And here, chiefs of thousands. So obviously you see people who are, have the character and the wisdom to handle thousands of people. Others hundreds, some 50s, some 10s, because the responsibility is huge. And so you want people who are wise and people who have the character, who are not, if a person is capable of taking care of 10 people, they may not be capable of taking care of thousands of people. They don't have the kind of character that let them do that. So there's a lot in each of these verses. Do you see that? Even for us today. And I hear a resounding yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Miriam. Okay.
If you do this, and God so commands you, you will be able to bear up, and all these people too will go home unwearied. Moses heeded his father-in-law and did just as he said.
What makes it so amazing is, like, look at the wisdom of Jethro. Like he's telling him all this, and he's saying to choose men who are men of God. So obviously he's talking out of something that he's had experience of.
Exactly.
He had to have been a very wise man. He's setting the tone, and he's advising him to choose, men who don't accept bribe, and men who love God. So, it's when you really, really look at this, you have to really, we're just talking about the fact that God is the God of the whole universe, the whole world.
Exactly. And one of the reasons our rabbi used to say was that God gave the 10 commandments here. Remember, they were at the base of Mount Sinai, which is where Yitro lived. They were encamped at the base of Mount Sinai at this point, because Moses was going to go up. And the first time Moses came, the first time he was there, this was right after he escaped Egypt, when he ran away after he'd killed the Egyptian guard. He ended up here, and Moses went up to the mountain, and already we have the understanding that Yitro knew that this was the mountain of God.
Right.
Yeah. And Moses listened to his father-in-law and did what he said. Go ahead, Jer.
Moses chose capable individuals out of all Israel, and appointed them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. And they judged the people at all times. The difficult matters they would bring to Moses, and all the minor matters they would decide themselves. Then Moses bade his father-in-law farewell, and he went his way to his own land. On the third new moon after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai.
So what does that say? The third new moon. What does that say to you? 3 months.
Yeah. I thought you were asking a philosophical question.
No,
yeah, 3 months.
3
Yeah.
months. They were sitting there. Imagine sitting there for 3 months. I don't have the ability to sit still for 2 minutes. And here They're there at that mountain for 3 months before they leave and they enter the wilderness. Now their journey begins. Okay.
Having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain. And Moses went up to God, Hashem, called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob and declare to the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me.
I love that picture. I love that Hebrew is such a picturesque language. Imagine the whole idea. I don't know if you've ever heard about the story of eagles and how when an eagle is teaching the baby, the eaglet, to fly, the mother will drop the eaglet out of the nest and allow it to drop to strengthen its wings. And she sees if the wings are not ready, she will go under the baby and bring the baby back up into the nest. And that's the picture that God is giving, how God is bearing us up. He's always taking care of us. I love
I'm always amazed.
There's another bird that the baby, I was just watching it, the baby has to jump off the cliff at a certain point.
Jerry, can you take your finger away? It's covering your face practically.
Oh, there's another bird that the baby has to jump off the cliff, and most of the time it's able to fly, and if it can't, it drops. They don't say that the mother will fly under it to hold it up. It's one of
not the eagle. It's not
no,
the
it's
eagle.
one of the vultures.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So they let the baby they let the baby die if you can't
Well,
fly.
they don't try to let the baby die. I mean, it's just one out of maybe thousands that, but the baby just, it's like well, I don't want to, it's like do or die, you know?
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit like us when we were kids. Today, the kids are so protected. In our day, there were no seat belts. We would leave home in the morning and we say, see you at lunch, see you at supper time, just to take care of yourself. It was very different mentality in those days.
There's a
Okay.
lot of things in the Torah.
Mary, can you put your picture on when you're talking to us?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is there a reason you have it
Well, okay. Am I on?
better now?
Because I can't see me. You can see me?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't see myself.
You don't
now.
need to see yourself. I like to see you.
Okay, I know. I'm just saying. But there are a lot of portions in the Torah that make comments that presume, how that shows us that God knows His creation. These are facts, about eagles, etc., and all of these metaphors based on certain things. Like even there's something about, I think, the arc of the sun, or there's certain things in parts of the Torah that talk about, in a certain context, certain natural phenomena. And it's interesting that we just kind of take it for granted, but it shows, for one thing, that the earth isn't flat, etc. So just when we brush over these parts and we just think, okay, nice metaphor, like taking you like the way an eagle does on its wings, but really it's the Creator who knows His creation.
Exactly. Brian, I'd turn off your microphone because there's a noise coming from your phone or whatever it is you're on. So if you want to say something, unmute. Otherwise, keep it muted, okay?
The eagle, when their babies are fully grown, before they don't jump on their mothers. When they're fully grown and have their adult feathers, they make a little jump in the nest, and they flap their wings. And when they feel like they got a good lift up, then they fly out.
This is the eagle?
You feed them the food from when they break up the food when they're feeding.
Right. Okay, but I was just talking about how I bore you on eagle's wings. That's the picture that I mentioned before comes from that. Okay, I'm going to put you on mute because there's a lot of static coming from your
Yeah,
mic.
yeah, Brian, you're correct. The other baby birds as well, they do flap their wings before they jump off the cliff.
Right. Probably that's when they start, but if they're not strong enough to, then the eagle will come. I saw a picture of that and I thought it was amazing. Okay, now continue. You want to continue, Jer?
Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel.
This to me is so important. Miriam, what's your first idea or your first impression when you read this?
Well, first, I don't know,
Re-
just
Put your
first thing
picture
I
on,
saw is
please. Miriam, please put
oh,
your picture
sorry.
on.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because when I speak to you, I don't like to look at a black square.
Okay, because I don't see anybody. I just see the word.
Just don't change your video. Leave it on.
Well, sometimes I take it off because I blow my nose. Please allow me that. Anyway,
Yeah,
never
but
mind.
if somebody
Okay.
else is speaking, we can't,
Okay.
all we hear is a voice. We can't see you.
The
And it's
disembodied
important.
voice. Okay. It says, all the earth is mine. So he's separating us from all, to say that we're the treasured people, but indeed all the earth is mine. So sometimes unconsciously or consciously, we maybe myself as a Jewish person, I don't I don't even know how to explain this, but we're in the context of the whole planet. We're not a separate religion. I know we've said this before, but it really hits me here. Indeed, he says, all the earth is mine. So this is not just a Jewish thing. We have a job to do, and we're special, and we're given a special mandate. But he ends the little paragraph by saying, the earth is mine, but you shall, now he's saying what we will do, what my purpose is for you, to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nations. Anyway, I see it as a picture of the whole global picture. Like, we're not separate, whatever's happening all over the world, when people, we tend to separate everything and compartmentalize. But this is a whole, that's why what's happening even in Israel is a global thing, and it's affecting everybody. Even people who don't realize it are being affected by this.
Exactly. But look, there's an if. If you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant,
Right.
you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. And then he says, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests. So the whole nation were meant to be a kingdom of Kohanim.
Right.
And a separate nation, not holy with a halo, more religious, better than others, but separated for a purpose.
Right.
And this didn't happen, although it did happen because we still are that. The problem is we don't always obey him faithfully and keep his covenant, but we still are his treasured possession. And most of us we didn't grow up understanding that. We never had that understanding that we are to be, we're like his treasure. To me, it's absolutely incredible.
Miriam, I find that very poignant what you said, that things that affect Israel seem to affect the entire world. I think that's a very, very significant statement.
Yeah. And yeah, we've talked about that, Peggy. That this is not a little incident in the world, because people listen to the news and there are many things happening in the news. But, you know, this little, what's happening, if it impacts everybody.
I mean, really, to the point that when we went to visit someone in the hospital, a friend of ours in the hospital, her caregiver is from Nigeria, and she had to flee Nigeria because of Boko Haram. They
Right.
were kidnapping, raping the women, doing the same thing there as they just did in Israel. But we didn't hear it in the same way. We heard it a bit, but the whole nation of Nigeria didn't do what Israel is doing today for the hostages, for their people, putting a stop. There's something different about Israel, and that happens to be our God. The God of Israel is set us apart. He's behind us. It's not the same with the other nations. And we have to show them the way to our God. That's our
Yeah.
role.
Right.
You agreed, Jer?
I was very, very, very extremely touched when Miriam brought out that point, Peggy. Very,
Good.
very. It really goes right to the heart of things, and it's very special idea, or I'm not sure if the right word for it, but it was really, really hit home.
Exactly. And even in the end of one of our prophets, I think it's I'm not sure if it was Ezekiel, Jeremiah, one of the prophets say that in the end, 10 Gentiles will come and cling to the cloak of one Jew saying, "Show me your God." So it's very powerful. You want to continue, Jer?
Yeah, I like that from Miriam. I know I said it a few times, Deja. All those assembled answered as one saying, all that the
Wait, here,
Lord has.
this verse here, verse number 7.
Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all that the Lord had commanded him. All those assembled answered as one, saying, all that Hashem has spoken, we will do. And Moses brought back the people's word to Adonai. And Adonai said to Moses, I will come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after. Then Moses reported the people's words to Adonai. And Adonai said to Moses, go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow. Let them wash their clothes. Let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day, Adonai will come down in the sight of all the people on Mount Sinai. You shall set bounds for the people round about, saying, beware of going up the mountain or touching the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death without being touched, by being either stoned or shot. Beast or person, a trespasser, shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they may go up on the mountain. Moses came down from the mountain to the people and warned the people to stay pure, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day, the men among you. You should not go near a woman. On the third day.
So I wonder what, like, in gematria, what 3 is, because a lot of things happen like on the third day, like third.
Yeah. But
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't.
yeah, I don't know. I know that a lot of things happen on the third day, but for me, what struck me while I was reading this is that what God told the people to do, he said, don't beware of going near the mountain or touching it. Don't go near a woman. Stay pure. Wash your clothes. And because Moses was going to go up on the mountain, and while he was up on the mountain, they did the absolute very opposite. It says you should not go near a woman. And yet at the golden calf, while Moses was up on the mountain, the people are doing the very opposite of what God told them to do right here. No, that
On the
doesn't.
third day,
Oh.
as morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning, and a dense cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud blast of the horn, and all the people were in the camp trembled. Moses led the people out of the camp toward God, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for Adonai had come down upon it in fire. The smoke rose like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The blare of the horn grew louder and louder, and Moses spoke. God answered him in thunder.
Here it's translated as horn, but in the Hebrew it's hashofar. And it doesn't, I don't know if they had shofarim or where this shofar came from. Miriam, you were going to say something before?
Not sure. Let me just think for a second. I guess, like, having known people who had what some people call the mystical experiences, whatever you want to call it. I remember this woman, not a Jewish woman, but having an experience with God, and initially she said it was so overwhelming and so frightening, like the vastness of the experience was of such vastness. The vastness of her encounter with God was like it was so vast, and no words could even come out of her mouth. And
Wow.
I'm just saying that there's something something like here when you see the mountain and smoke, and it's something that's common in a lot of people's experiences. I'm not trying to make the experience more important than who God was, but when you have an experience of holiness, like even when God says, for there to be no sexual encounters or whatever for the next while, it's not a statement about sex and about it being unclean, but there's the idea of separating, like, the sacred from the profane, as you see in literature. Not meaning, you know what I mean? It's to
Yes.
make us know that there's something special and different happening, and we're to, be humble in that presence.
Right.
There's no room for ego in any of this type of experience. To be humble before God.
That's the message of the whole Torah.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, Miriam. Thank you. And the Lord
So,
came down.
to mention, to add to you, Miriam, I would say this was the time and the place for the people to meet God. This was the time and the place, and to concentrate on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Adonai came down from Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, and Adonai called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Adonai said to Moses, "Go down, warn the people not to break through to Hashem to gaze, lest many of them perish. The priests also who come near to Adonai must stay pure, lest Adonai break out against them." But Moses said to Adonai, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, 'Set bounds about the mountain and sanctify it.'" So Adonai said to him, "Go down and come back together with Aaron. But let not the priests or the people break through to come up to Adonai, lest God break out against them." And Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. God spake all these words, saying,
This is the beginning. This is the 10 Commandments. This is what God is speaking to all the people, that every nation of the world, that every human being in this world needs to hear.
I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, your God, and I am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the thousandth generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of your God, Adonai, for Adonai will not clear one who swears falsely by God's name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of your God Adonai. You shall not do any work. You, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth and sea, and all that is in them, and then rested on the seventh day. Therefore Adonai blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that you may long endure on the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. All the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the blare of the horn, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they fell back and stood at a distance. You speak to us, they said to Moses, and we will obey. But let not God speak to us, lest we die. Moses answered the people, be not afraid, for God has come only in order to test you, and in order that the fear of God may be ever with you, so that you do not go astray. So their people remained at a distance, while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. Adonai said to Moses, thus shall you say to the Israelites, you yourselves saw that I spoke to you from the very heavens. With me, therefore, you shall not make any gods of silver, nor shall you make for yourself any gods of gold. Make for me an altar of earth, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your sacrifices of well-being, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. And if you make for me an altar of stones, do not build it of hewn stones, for by wielding your tool upon them, you have profaned them.
Okay,
Do not
about that,
ascend upon my altar by steps, that your nakedness may not be exposed upon it.
That's the
this
last.
must have been how their neighbors, and the other nations worshipped God. So God is saying, I want you to do it differently.
It was
if you
also
make me-
because God wanted this to be an altar of peace, where we would have peace, shalom, and these tools that were made were tools of war, like swords, and he didn't want any iron or anything that was used for war. That's how the rabbis explain this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought of it also as comparing, because this wasn't the first time, other groups of peoples, had sacrifices, and they offered to various gods. So this was also a way of saying, this is different. I'm not the same God that you see other altars built for,
Exactly.
In King Solomon's time, they speak of a special worm or something that was able to help them split the stones.
Okay. But the heart of this parasha, interestingly enough, named after a Gentile, Yitro, is the heart of our people, is the constitution that God gave to Israel. And this is what we should live by, not to have any other gods. Today, there are so many other gods. You have idols all over the place, and gods that are being worshipped lifnei, before him, like not to, actually it says al panai, panai in before his face. They're not to put any other gods before his face. And when it says here, religious people take this too literally, where they won't even put you can't have anything in your home, no artwork, no paintings of anything. It's not what God meant. He said not to bow down to them or serve them like the pagans did. And I like what it says here about visiting the guilt of the parents. Sometimes children suffer for the guilt of the parents. Like you'll see that in alcoholic families, where the children suffer because the parents were alcoholics. But it would come upon the third and fourth generations of those who reject him. In other words, third and fourth have an understanding of a temporary period of time. So it gives us hope. And here, when we turn back to God, showing kindness to the thousandth generation, and in Gematria, the thousandth mean for eternity, of those who love him and keep his commandments, God will reverse those generational curses. And he doesn't want, when it says, do not swear falsely by the name of God, don't say words that God never said, which is why in a few places we'll read, don't add or don't take away from his words. And yet our religious people of all nations have volumes and volumes of writings that say other than what God has given us in his Torah. And God doesn't want us to do that. The Sabbath, keep it separate. 6 days we're to labor and do all his work. The seventh is a Sabbath of your God. In it you shall not do any work. Malacha, melech, earn a salary. He doesn't, all those added extra laws and rules and regulations, he doesn't care about them. He just wants us to take a break, take a day, because we are no longer slaves. We are free. He doesn't even want us to be a slave of him. We are to know that we can make our own decisions. He gave us free will. We can choose to do the right things for everyone in our household, even the stranger within us. The Sabbath is not given only for the Israelites. It was given to everyone because it's a day of rest. It's a day for us to know that in 6 days, he made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything that's in them. That's why he blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. He set it apart for all the world, all nations, which is why.
Because also, as I remember, just when I sort of realized more intensely what the Sabbath is all about. It's he's saying, because of me, because I am the creator. It's basically to me a testament to the fact that there is a God who created this earth. It's not just a day set aside, could be any day, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. It's a testimony that God made the earth and blessed the earth, you know, and I find that so, sorry, here I'm going to go on, so amazing
Yes,
that God is the creator of the whole earth.
exactly. And he gave it to us as a sign of his existence.
Yeah, exactly.
How else would we know that he created the earth in the 6 days? I don't know. I don't think it was a literal 6 days, but it was a period of time.
Right.
And that period of time on the seventh day, whenever that was, or however that looked, that was the day that he stopped creating. And because he didn't need to rest, he's God. We're the ones who needed it.
Right.
We're the ones who need to take a day, because a slave has no choice. A slave has to work 7 days. And this was showing us that we're no longer slaves, and that we must not have slaves. Not even the stranger among us should be a slave, but even our animals needed a rest.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. You know, even the animals, you know, they stop threshing, whatever. Like, you know, it's yeah, literally the animals too.
Exactly. And he told us, last week we read about how he gave us the manna, the man. And he said them, gather for 6 days. On the sixth day, I'll give you a double portion, and then you'll have enough on the seventh day. Just trust me. It's all about trust that I will take care of you. When we say we're not going to work on the Sabbath, we're saying, you know what? We trust that God is going to provide for us, not only on the seventh day, but for the rest of the week. And this one is so important. Honor your parents so that we may live long. It's for our health. The Shabbat and the honoring of our parents are for us, for our health. The first three are the mitzvot that pertain to God himself, who he is, the fact that he brought us out of Egypt, the fact that he freed us from slavery, and we're not to make images and worship the images, and we're not to take his name in vain. We're not to speak words that he never said. Those have to do with our relationship with our Creator. The next two are called chukim. These are ordinances that we may not understand why we need to do it, but just it's for our good. And literally, this is for us, for you and I, to live long, to be healthy, and to enjoy our life. The last five here are called the mishpatim, the judgments, and how we treat our neighbor. Do not murder them. Do not premeditate and go out and murder. That's very different from killing to defend yourself. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not lie about your neighbor. Don't speak words that destroy their character. That's like murder. And the last one, do not be jealous. Remember, even your brother mentioned that today, Miriam, about the sickness, the illness that jealousy can cause when
Right.
a husband is jealous of his wife, or a wife is jealous of the husband. You become sick.
Right.
When you want something that your neighbor has, and you'll do anything to get it, because that's the idea of covet. You'll do anything to get what they do.
Well,
Even
the idea, even that what the David, my brother, was talking about, Taylor Swift going out with this football hero, and the backlash of jealousy. And people aren't calling it jealousy, but that's what it is. I mean, why isn't she allowed to have that? You know, it's just horrible what's happening because of that.
exactly. And
And
here,
there is an opinion that, well, God made the earth in 6 days. I'm going to make like an analogy. Like, let's say he made an electric light and he plugged it into electricity. So he made that in 6 days, but he's supporting the electricity, he's supporting what he made eternally. So his support is keeping us here, is keeping it. So if he was to give up his support, we wouldn't exist. So he created us and he's maintaining us.
exactly. And so when we refuse to take that day that he gave us as a gift. It's like it's like, let's say you came over to my home and you brought me a gift and I took it and I threw it back in your face. That's a little bit like what we're doing with God. When he gives us gifts and we throw it back in his face, we're not interested in this. We prefer our own gods. We prefer our own way. And he's not asking us to do impossible things on Shabbat. Just take a day, period. And don't spend money. Don't earn money. Don't make others earn money. Just take one day and trust him. Give it to him. And you know, we've if the whole world just kept these 10, never mind all the other rules and regulations that have been given to us that have been made more important than the 10. You know, our rabbis did us a great disservice when they removed reading the 10 commandments every Shabbat, because they said, well, maybe we'll forget that there's actually 613. So, or an extra 600, and there was 607. There's 10, and then they added an extra 613. So not an extra. They made it up to 613, including the 10, but it isn't. The only ones that God is requiring, is asking us to do, written in stone, are the 10. And they're so profound, and they're not easy to do, even though they're simple in understanding. They're not easy to keep. We fight against our desire to keep them every single day. How many times would we really like to murder somebody, or gossip about them, or be jealous of them? You know? So this is a really, really,
Yes,
really.
and the 613 people wear on their tzitzis, they wear 613, and it's comprised of 248 positive organs of the body and 365 days.
Right. Those are the things that the rabbis have said that it means. And it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. It makes sense. But the Torah doesn't say it. God didn't necessarily say those things. And the problem is that when we open a door to say that what we say has more value or impact than what God says, we open a very dangerous pathway. We were just talking about that today, of how the government right now is discussing about opening a door to suicide by, not suicide, by
Assisted medical
medically
assisted
assisted
dying.
death for those who are mentally ill. And they've already opened the door for assisted death for those who have sicknesses and want to die. So we're going down a very dangerous path, because the 10 Commandments say, if that's our constitution, and if that's our plumb line for all the decisions that we make upon this earth, if we're saying no, it's okay to murder in these circumstances, because when we take a life, it is premeditated murder, and God is saying don't. But we're saying, you know what, in this situation, maybe it's okay. Bottom line is, we don't have that right. God didn't give us the right to take anybody else's life, except if they're trying to kill us, and we in self-defense. And that's not premeditated murder. Would you agree, Jer?
Right. As you mentioned, that the rabbis have written that someone wants to do you in, you should get up earlier in the morning
And what? Run away?
no, you should get up earlier and see that they're not able to do it by the means that are necessary.
Exactly. I mean, if I look at even the very, very, very sensitive issue of abortion, many rabbis will say It really depends on the circumstances. For me, the only circumstance that there is when when the mother's life is in danger. If the mother were to die, there would be no more babies. But in every other way, we don't have a right to take a life, because that life has the breath of God in it right from the very beginning. So, do you agree?
Yes, there are many people who are of that opinion. I'm not saying that I'm not one of them, but I'm just saying there's many people who yeah, it's a very difficult situation to have to make the call on that, even with the woman and the child. But it's very difficult, and I thank heaven that so far I've not been called upon to absolutely make that particular decision.
Well, without God, the decision is easy to make. You do what you want. You do what makes you feel better. You do what's good for you. With God, we have to see, what does he say? So it's really, a matter of whether or not you want to follow God or not. And then, yes, Brian, do you have something to say about that?
If you don't want the baby, give it up to somebody else.
Exactly. And teach, there's always another way. You can teach morality. You can teach young men and women to wait until they're married. We've lost.
I like your answer, Brian.
And also, in case that lady who gave up the baby changes her mind and wants to find the child, let her find the child later on in life and say, you're lucky I didn't make an abortion. I let you live. So in case you want to look for your mother, here I am.
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Very good, Brian. Very good.
Baruch.
Baruch. Yes, Baruch. So this portion was absolutely excellent. I know that people listening in will have certainly their opinions about it, and we're open to listening to opinions. And but these 10 commandments are the foundation for us, for all humanity. That's why it was given to us. Go ahead.
613 laws, like who counted those? Is that for every time you see a commandment, don't do this, do that? I mean, they're just, to me, expansions of the 10 commandments.
But
They're
that's
not
exactly it. They're applications. Exactly, Miriam.
But who counted? I wonder. Do you know, Jerry? Who counted 613? Maimonides.
Probably was before. Well, do you know, Jer?
No, I'm not aware of who counted them.
Okay.
Well, the first Talmud I think that was written was the Babylonian Talmud. So from the time we were taken out, for the first expulsion in Babylon, Talmuds were already beginning. When we were out of the land, the rabbis always had to find a way to keep our people together. And so they began, Ben Zakkai. There were so many rabbis, but that's a good one to research, Miriam, to look up. So I think that was really, I really liked the format where we all participate more.
Yeah.
It's really good, and certainly takes the pressure off of me, because I don't see myself as a teacher. I see myself more as a moderator, and we all have something to teach. And I think we'll be a student until the day we die.
Right.
A good teacher can only teach if they're a good learner. So we have to be open and flexible, right, Brian?
I got what you said. I got it from the Google, so I can see this, or I can read it.
Yes, good. And you could do that too, Miriam. You go to Google and just type in Sefaria, which is what I do. That's how because I don't have an application on my.
So I can download it onto my phone.
can do it on your phone, or you can do it on a
You
tablet.
you can download it onto your phone, or when you're on your computer, you can open it up on your computer as well, just by
Okay,
Googling Sefaria, Sefaria, and
okay.
anybody is welcome to do that. It's a free application. So anyway, I want to thank you all for this. Brian, thank you for your input. Miriam, Jerry, I love it. And
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
and I love the Torah. The Torah's changed my life, and it continues to help me to grow and to change and to learn. And we need to pray that our people, number one, will turn back to the Torah, so that we could be a light in so many other ways. Every time we break a commandment, Brian, I'm turning off the sound because there's a static.
More input, more input. I'm doing like the short circuit robot. More
Yeah.
input.
Every time we break a commandment, each and every one of us, we bring a little more of spiritual darkness into the world. We may not realize it, and we obviously not doing it on purpose. But the idea is for us to strive, to work hard, to keep the commandments. And when Yeshua was asked how to sum up the 10 commandments, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your everything else that you have, meodecha, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So we need to learn to love ourselves first. That helps us to love our neighbor. And it doesn't mean kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. It means doing what is right for them, putting them before you. When my rights end where your rights begin. So we're not to impose upon others what we believe. We can talk to people, but we cannot impose. The Torah is not an impositional book. The Torah is a book of principles for us to live by. Jerry, thank you for your input today. Miriam, thank you. Jerry, do you want to read the
The congregation will say on receiving the blessings, may it be thy will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, that this blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon thy people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'dushasoi shel Aaron v'tzivonu levarech es amo Yisrael v'yahavo Yevorechecho Adonai v'yishmerecho Yoer Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yiso Adonai panav elecha ve'yosem lecho shalom. V'samu et shemi al bnei Yisrael v'ani arvoyachem.
May the Lord bless us and keep us. May the Lord shine his face upon us and be gracious to us. May the Lord lift up his face upon us and give us shalom. And I pray that for all of us.
Amen. May it be God's
Amen.
will.
Amen. So I want to say good night to everyone, and I look forward to hearing from us next week. And I think next week is Mishpatim, but we'll take a look at that. I'm looking forward actually to our Shabbat service, and have a wonderful rest of the week. And I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.